The water is a part of you. It's a part of your life. It's a central part of, sort of everything to do with Torres Strait culture. It really sort of shapes and pushes and pulls cultural activity that happens throughout the region. My name's Brian Robinson. I'm a Maluyligal man from the Western Islands of Zenith Kes, or Torres Strait, a Wuthathi man from the Silicon Sand Dunes at Shelburne Bay, the eastern side of Cape York Peninsula, a Dayak man from Sarawak, Malay State on Borneo, a member of the Villafort family of the Philippines, the Robinson family of England, and the Salmon family of Scotland. Ur Wayii, which means incoming tide in Kala Lagaw Ya, I suppose is a very fitting title for the exhibition, particularly with it being here at the Maritime Museum and the Maritime Museum's connection to water right across this country. As you walk into the space, that becomes sort of apparent because the works themselves speak about that connection to water. I grew up on Waiben, gateway to the amazing Torres Straits, where salt water not only surrounds the islands, but is in everyone's veins and is part of your DNA. As a child, you sort of absorb it all. I spent many years actually living with my grandfather, going out to catch fish and go turtle hunting, hunt for dugong, collect pigeon eggs, prawning, and the whole host of sort of sea-related sort of activities that happens up in the Torres Straits. So that was my sort of connection to culture basically was through him. He taught me how to navigate out on the water, both during the day as well as during the evening, looking at certain star constellations and things like that. The cosmos, star constellations seen in the night sky, they really affect tidal movements, migration patterns, social activity. And one particular constellation that is on display here in the museum is a work called Waiben, which is the Great Shark Stars. So in Western world, it's called Ursa Major or the Big Dipper. And it's a significant constellation that is seen in the night skies throughout a good chunk of the entire 12 months of the year in the Torres Straits. My late grandfather was a massive, sort of influence, not only on my cultural life, but also my artistic life as well. Stashed in his room, he also had box upon box upon box of comic phantoms. And so that's what really drew me into that, sort of realm of that, that powerful, sort of male figure that fought for good and did things, honourably, I suppose. That was my introduction into that, sort of superhero, sort of realm. And it's been a great introduction, I suppose, because from Phantom, there's been, a whole host of other superheroes that have spawned, over the years, both male and female, that occupied all of these different universes, that, lived in these multiverses that a lot of my practice, I suppose, a lot of my thoughts of my practice are sort of encompassed in. As a child growing up in the Torres Straits, you're surrounded by, all of these palm trees, all of this flora, that is usable. And so, you just sort of fit into this long line of people, of, sort of islanders that utilise, this material that surrounds you. It's that innate connection to home, to that environment, to the salt water and to all of those different sights, sounds and smells that you get from living on the island. And then you're taught as a child to first weave this simple angelfish, which is only 2 strips of coconut frond. But that little, sort of woven object is not only a toy that you can take away, but it's also an ornament that adorns feasting tables across all the islands. So there's, that affinity with using, all of this natural environment or material from the natural environment to decorate the feast table, basically. Sort of Banks Bounty is one in a series of artworks that have been produced quite recently that look at that first encounter, sort of period with Spanish, with Portuguese, with, sort of English, all coming to the shores of Australia, up the east coast to the Torres Straits. But more specifically at Joseph Banks and his collecting of all of these amazing, exotic, sort of flowering plants that were food sources, medicinal sources. So it was, that period where, a lot of these materials, a lot of these plant materials were collected sometimes drawn, quickly before being locked away in crates, stored back on the Endeavour and then taken back over to England. But when you look at, the Banks Bounty sculptures, the flowers themselves are quite mechanical. But then hidden in amongst all of those little flowers are these amazing little toys that, I've collected over the years as well. And toys that, make you think, okay, why is little Bartman sitting right there? Or why is there, sort of a Pikachu, sort of poking his head around, one of the corners of the crates? So it's all these little sort of Easter eggs that, I sort of infuse in the works that make people wonder about not only those little objects, but the entire artwork, as a whole. One of the main reasons that I, sort of create art, apart from me having, that joyful experience of, creation of art, is to also pass on those stories to my extended family, to my children, to other, family, other aunties, uncles, cousins. So when you look at that, sort of extended family sort of situation, it's not just people that live up in the Torres Straits, but, all the Torres Strait mob that live around the country and also overseas. But not just Torres Strait people. I want, everyone to connect with these stories because they are so universal. It's not just about Torres Strait culture, but it includes, Greek mythology, Roman, sort of mythology, African American culture. There's pop art culture that comes from, Japan and, sort of China and other, sort of Asian countries as well. So it's a mix of all of these different, sort of worlds that are contained in the one space, but not fighting for position to be on top. They all sort of sit parallel within all of these different stories and realms that I create within the works. So, it's personal, but it's also broadening, that knowledge and that experience out to anyone who interacts with the work.